Did you know that in the past 10 years, federal governments have cut 15,000 public service jobs, leading to a massive influx of consultants from the Big Four, PwC, KPMG, EY, and Deloitte on government contracts, costing billions of dollars? This, my friends, is the shocking reality of the consulting crisis that we are currently grappling with. But how did we get to this point? Well, it's a tale of power, politics, and underhand dealings. For over a decade, the liberal national federal governments have been steadily chipping away at the public service, axing jobs left, right, and center. This, in turn, opened up a lucrative opportunity for the Big Four consulting firms to swoop in and snap up government contracts worth billions. But this is not just a simple case of supply and demand. Oh no, this goes much deeper. The coalition, it seems, has been playing a rather dubious game, shuffling jobs between the government and these consulting behemoths, ensuring a steady flow of business and, of course, the big bucks. Whistleblowers from the Department of Defense and KPMG have bravely come forward to expose the incestuous relationships that have been flourishing behind the scenes. And what they reveal is not pretty. More than 15,000 government jobs have been abolished, leaving a gaping void that these consulting firms have been more than happy to fill. And as they feast on government contracts, the taxpayers are left footing the bill. In this scenario, the analogy of pigs with snouts in the trough seems quite apt for what has been occurring. This is the shocking reality of the consulting crisis, a crisis that was not an accident but a deliberate strategy, a crisis that has cost jobs, billions of dollars, and our faith in the system. The lack of transparency remains a major issue in the consulting industry. It raises the question, was this a deliberate strategy by the coalition government? An unsettling thought, indeed. As the government's work shifted to private consulting firms, we saw a troubling diversion of public funds. Funds that were traditionally allocated to the trusted public service were redirected towards these private entities. This move begs the question, why outsource the work that has always been the realm of government through the public service? The answer may lie in the fact that these consulting firms are not scrutinized to the same degree as government departments. It's a loophole that allows for a veil of secrecy, a lack of accountability. This lack of oversight became glaringly apparent in the PwC tax scandal. This incident revealed that these firms, entrusted with sensitive and confidential government information, could not be trusted after all. PwC Australia, one of the largest consulting firms in the world, was embroiled in a scandal that resulted in the sacking of 8 partners, including its former CEO, Tom Seymour. The scandal was a stark reminder of the potential risks and consequences of placing too much trust in the hands of private consulting firms. It underscored the need for greater transparency, accountability, and oversight in the consulting industry, especially when it involves the handling of public funds and sensitive information. But what's the solution to this crisis of trust and transparency? How do we ensure that the consulting industry operates with integrity, responsibility, and in the best interest of the public? The answer may lie in a royal commission investigation. Such an investigation could shine a light on the industry's practices, uncover any unethical behavior, and recommend necessary reforms. It is clear that the consulting industry is in dire need of scrutiny and a royal commission investigation. It's time for us to demand transparency, accountability, and integrity from these firms. We cannot afford to turn a blind eye to the potential risks and consequences. The stakes are too high. Overcharging, extended contracts, and unethical practices seem to be rife in the consulting sector, leading to billions of dollars being siphoned off into the hands of these firms and their insider mates of the coalition. This is a scene of grand proportions, where the stage is set with high stakes and high rewards. The consulting sector, a world where the sophisticated jargon of finance and policy making intertwines with the raw human instinct for power and profit. Imagine a sector where overcharging is not an exception but an accepted norm. Contracts are not just extended but stretched to their maximum limit, all to squeeze out every possible dollar. This is not a work of fiction, but the reality of the consulting sector today. Let's delve deeper into one particular case that stands out, the infamous robo-debt debacle. The involvement of PwC, one of the world's leading consulting firms in this scandal, is a glaring illustration of the sector's ethical decay. Robo-debt was not just a policy failure, but a calculated exploitation of vulnerable citizens. backed by the technical expertise of a renowned consulting firm. This is not just about one company or one scandal. It is about a systemic erosion of ethics and professional standards, facilitated and overlooked by those in power. The coalition, the supposed guardians of public interest, seem to be playing a different game, one where taxpayer money serves as chips on a high-stakes poker table. But it's not just the money that's at stake here, it's the trust of millions of citizens, the integrity of our institutions, and the very principles that underpin our society. What we are witnessing is not just financial mismanagement, but a moral crisis of epic proportions. So, what happens next? Will the coalition continue to deny responsibility, or will they finally be held accountable for these firms and their insider mates? The answers to these questions are not just important, they are essential. They will determine the future course of our society and the kind of world we leave behind for our children. It is high time the coalition answers these pressing questions and those involved face the legal consequences of their actions. In light of these revelations, it becomes crucial for us, the citizens, to stay informed and vigilant about government practices. It is our right to know how our tax dollars are being spent, and it is our responsibility to ensure that those in power are held accountable for their actions. We must be alert to the practices of outsourcing and the potential lack of scrutiny that accompanies it. The importance of transparency and ethical standards in government dealings cannot be overstated. They are the pillars of a functioning democracy and a fair society. Without them, the risk of corruption, mismanagement, and erosion of trust becomes all too real. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that our governments are there to serve us, not the other way around. We must remain observant, question decisions that don't seem right, and demand answers when necessary. We must be the watchdogs of our democracy, ensuring that ethical standards are upheld, transparency is maintained, and that our governments are working for the betterment of all citizens, not just a select few. Remember, as responsible citizens, it is our duty to hold our government accountable and demand transparency and ethics in every decision made.